Yo, what's up, everyone? It's your boy Jack OATz to go. You either know or you don't. Thank you so much for tuning in to the video. As always, I appreciate the support. I spent 30 minutes talking, and it didn't record my voice. Dude, I'm getting so... This is such a bad habit. I need to break it. I swear to you, the thing was on. I don't know why it didn't. I did a test before this. Everything was the same, and it went perfectly. So okay, so you guys should hear me. Oh my god, I'm so mad at myself right now. Anyway, this video is going to contain some spoiler content and some spoiler images. So if you don't want to see the images or hear the spoiler content, please take the next 5 seconds to log out of this video and come back later today when the unofficials come out, or on Sunday if you'd rather wait until the officials come out. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, you should be gone. Anyway, Magna and Zora are back, and that's the most important part right now because Magna and Zora are the GOATs of this series. They are helping Jack, and that means they are facing off against Dante. And I know you're probably thinking, like, what? Like, how are either of them going to do anything to Dante? And I mean, what is going to happen? How is Magna actually going to hurt Dante? And here's the thing. They both arrive on the scene. Zora throws up his ash magic. Magna throws a fireball, and it explodes. And it doesn't do anything to Dante. All right. And then in another page, apparently Magna says something to the effect of, you know what? I'm going to take this guy alone. And of course, someone like Dante is going to be super upset and put off by that and insulted because who's Magna? I mean, not to be super critical of Magna, and if you know me, Magna is in my top 5 of just like favorite characters. But Magna is not the best fighter. He's probably one of the weakest fighters in the series, if not the weakest. I mean, just off dome, I can't think of anyone weaker than Magna right now. That's in the Knights. But anyway, well, you have Gray. We have that. So, but her magic isn't really offensive yet, so you can't, Anyway, so how is Magna going to damage Dante? And on top of that, is Magna even arcane? We'll go over that in just a bit. So upon hitting Dante with that fireball, it seems that he has implanted one of a trap spell that looks like what Zora uses. And I want to talk about the symbol. This is what this video is about today. And it could explain what is going on, because in the next page, we see that this chain that comes out of that trap is also linked to Magna. So Dante and Magna are linked together via this chain, and we see Dante grabbing the chain, just going like, what the hell is this? And then the next thing we know, Zora has flaming brass knuckles and punches the dog crap out of Dante, and it seems to be affecting him. It left a pretty good bruise on his face in that panel. So it seems that whatever's happening here is working. And the big question, like I said, is what is Magna's chain doing? Like, how is Magna able to do anything to Dante? So let's talk about the symbol. Now, believe you me, this symbol is tough. It's a tough one to track, and I've been trying since Zora was introduced to the series. I'd come across some facts about the symbol that led to a theory that I made, but I decided to sit on it until I got more contextual clues. And with Magna's new magic, I believe I can roll out this theory in a way that makes sense to the series. So let's look at Zora's magic first. He's got ash magic, but he uses it as trap magic. And one of the most notable spells that he has is this bounce back magic. That seems to be applicable to his character. He's got this karmic value about himself, and his magic also seems to reflect that. And so the symbol we see on Zora's Grimoire, as well as his trap magic, is an octagram. And while an octagram isn't hard to find via a quick Google search, the specific one used for Zora's and Magna's new magic is actually very specific and hard to find. Now, one of the first places that will see this is in the Freemasons. So this symbol is referred to as a double square, which has a lot of history, and in fact, so much history that the very symbol has changed many times, which makes sense as to why I had a very hard time finding the specific symbol upon research. So one of the places the symbol can be found to this day is within the Freemasons. The first square means order, while the second means disorder. When these squares intertwine and become the 8-pointed star, they represent the duality between order and disorder, taking power over both. Now, I do want to note that as we saw in this panel of manga, you have it as the double square, the two squares intertwined, so that's order and disorder. Now, in the anime, he only has a square, and I believe this is an edit on Tabata's part, if this happens to be true, because I believe in this specific situation, he was just bouncing back magic and not necessarily doubling it, as we've seen in other instances that he does, which makes sense because the first square order is also attributed, they say, what is fair is square, and that gives it that karmic value of order. So it makes sense in that way. So to go on, there's a phrase among the Freemason Society called order out of chaos, meaning if you control disorder or chaos in this instance, you will control the order, and by proxy, you will ultimately control the outcome. So take it back to what we're seeing with Magna and Dante. It seems that he's brought Dante to a level akin to himself to be able to fight on that level. And ultimately, it could be that Magna is able to control the outcome there. Although that seems a bit too OP, I believe it could just be that he brought Dante down to his level, so now they can fight on equal terms, and whatever happens, happens. But it just comes down to who is the better fighter on this level. So I'd like to go on to what is known as the Kagome crest, which is just a double square. But there are two versions of this. There's the double square you see here, and there is a 6-pointed crest. And while they look different, the meanings remain the same. So with the Kagome crest, it was believed to ward away evil in Shinto shrines, and it's just that simple. And okay, so while this is cool, and seems to align with what might be happening, because Dante is evil. Base without Lucifero, Dante is evil. Lucifero is evil. Them together are evil. So for this symbol to mean to have the effect of warding away evil seems to be what's happening, because it does look like Magna is bypassing this gravity magic, because Magna has nothing in his arsenal right now that would suggest that he could even stand in the same room, literally, with Dante, with his gravity magic. So to me, it seems like this trap is negating the magic that Lucifer would be giving to Dante, which is why he's able to fight like this in that same room without anything special, like Jack's adapting blades or Slotos's armor and Yami's Dark Moon. You don't need any of that, because it seems that this seal has locked away that devil mana. And I'll get into this right after we talk about the Kagome crest. So, like I was saying, it's cool, but there's something important to note here. With the double square being the counterpart of the 6-pointed star, this brings me to the theory I've been sitting on since we met Zora, and this involves the Seal of Solomon. So we know that the Seal of Solomon is referring to the Lesser and Greater Keys of Solomon. And for those that don't know, those grimoires are books of information that tell you how to summon and exorcise demons, genies, angels, spirits, and anything of the like. So this is a very important seal. And so in the Key of Solomon, the 6-pointed version of the Kagome crest, that directly corresponds to the double crest is seen. This symbol gave power to command demons, jinns, and genies. And to go back really quick on the Kagome crest, this was also attributed to wish granting. And if you've seen in Yuyasha, we see like when he's collecting the jewel shards and you have the character Kagome, you see how that aligns, right? So, like I said, this symbol gives the wielder the power to command demons, jinns, or genies, and spirits, and it also gives them the wielder power to speak to animals. And like I was saying before, it does seem that Lucifero has been taken out of this equation, which means Magna might, through this spell at least, might have, in a sense, exorcised, in quotations, exorcised Lucifero for the time being. Now, I know that we still see Dante in that form, while it's, like I said, it's a form of exorcism by just blocking out Lucifero from helping out Dante. So I think this is somewhat what's happening. Now, to go even further with this symbol, we go to the Tree of Life. And we see that we have that 6-pointed star right where Dot is. Now, this symbol is used to symbolize Dot, which is otherwise known as the doorway to the heavens. So this makes it even more possible that this has more to do with a sort of exorcism happening here, being that Lucifero is no longer in the equation in this fight as of right now, being that they might be drawing some powers from the gods. So I think that is interesting. But there are some things that I found in this encyclopedia. Now, these are different perspectives, and they all talk about what this star means, and all of that, and their interpretations. So it's really cool. Kind of long. I'll make it as short as possible. But this is coming from an encyclopedia, and this is focusing again on the octagram, and they say the octagram is the expression of the law of cause and effect. Those two are inextricably tied together. What you sow is what you shall reap. And you will compare this with karma and the wheel of life. And that makes the number 8 the number of fate, destiny, and justice. Transformative qualities are resurrection, immortality, and prosperity. And that was from the Handbook on Symbolism. So within the excerpt of the Tomb of God, you can read that the 8-pointed symbol before our eyes, deducted from 2 squares superimposed on each other, was already used by the Rosicrucians in the 17th century as a symbol for the 8 points of a geometrical universe that was guarded by 8 angels. Now, before I say anything else, I want to go back to not Magna, but Zora's Grimoire. What you see, again, is the double square, but you also see in each corner of each square, you have the regular oriented square has big dark circles, while the diamond oriented square has phases of the moon. You have a full moon at the top. I believe that would be considered a new moon at the bottom. That's a waning moon, a waning half moon, and then you have the gibbous on the right side. So that gives rise to the 8 angels guarding the universe, right? The geometrical universe. This is also noted in Egyptian lore with the octagram. And while their octagram looks a bit different, it's still representing the fact that there are 8 gods that reside over those 8 points that work together to keep this universe in check, pretty much. So really interesting stuff. Again, something interesting that goes back to one of my last videos talking about the Order of the Golden Dawn and the Order of the Rosy Cross and in the Order of the Silver Star. They noted that the Rosicrucians in the 17th century also used the symbol. So if you're not familiar with the Order of the Rosy Cross, I suggest you go back to that video. And it's very important, and it seems to debunk a lot of our families within the Clover Kingdom. I'm probably going to make more videos on it as well, but I also made a pretty in-depth thread on Twitter no more than a week and a half ago. So if you don't follow me on Twitter, at least find me and go look at that if you're curious. But very, very interesting stuff as far as secret societies go and how this really goes into Black Clover. To go on, this is in Edgar Cayce on Jesus and his church. And this is talking about the law of cause and effect. So, through the varying activities, he overcame the world through the experiences, bearing the cross in each and every experience. Now, they refer to the cross because whoever they're talking about in this case, which is Edgar Cayce, has reached the point of becoming a part of the Rosy Cross, the Order of the Rosy Cross, which is the second highest order. And I go over all the orders. So again, just go back to the video where I talk about the Order of the Silver Star. So I'm gonna restart. Through the varying activities, he overcame the world through the experiences, bearing the cross in each and every experience, reaching the final cross with all power, all knowledge, and having overcome the world, and of himself accepted the cross. Hence doing away with that often called karma that must be met by all. The immutable law of cause and effect is as evidence in the world today in the material, the mental, and the spiritual world. But he, in overcoming the world, the law, became the law. The law then becomes as the schoolmaster or the school of training, and we who have named the name then are no longer under the law as law, but under mercy as in him. For in him, and with the desires, may there be the coordination of all things. Then as each soul builds for that, as the soul is to act, whether in mind or body, the soul mind is already in the throes of the influences necessary. Then when we comprehend, we realize there is no time, no space, and that the divinity of the man, Jesus, was perfect in his activity in the earth, for it was offered even from the first. Now, in this, I would suggest that Zora may come from a lineage of mages that belong to a certain secret society, but this can also be attributed to the video that I initially talked about with Asta and the symbols that we see in his Devil Union form. Of course, we see the Morning Star in the dead center of his chest. That is also attributed to his timer in Devil Union, but you also see the light symbol on his chest on the outside of the Morning Star, which is an 8-pointed star. And it's funny that they mention that we realize there is no time, no space, and that divinity of the man, Jesus, was perfect in his activity on the earth. So this kind of goes back to us in a way, which is really kind of cool. Now we're going to go to the meaning of the 8-pointed star according to the Sankhya philosophy. This is the Hindu religion, right? And funny enough, they start this off with the word ether. Credit to Quan, he found the ether, but I mean, I'm the one going in on this, so it's my theory now. Sorry, Quan, it's mine. Just kidding. All right, so they say ether, or in the Sanskrit language, aksa, is the point from which all material manifestations originate. I say this also in the video where I talk about the Order of the Silver Star and how Aether is viewed within that. There's also a very long thread about Aether in Einstein's point of view as well on my Twitter, if you want to go look for that. Now, like I said, it's the point from which all material manifestations originate. From the lotus feet of Vishnu, everything is there from the beginning, and it all belongs to Krishna. Krishna is the almighty being, if you don't know, in that religion. So therefore, in fact, everything is spiritual, for Krishna is spiritual. Krishna is not material, as we explained earlier. Krishna provided everything for the living beings so that they are able to serve him nicely. For serving is their position. Now pay attention to this last half because it is very important. Matter is only for those who do not want to serve Krishna, as they are playing Krishna, the Almighty God, themselves. This is imitating Krishna and is equal to committing spiritual suicide, for they are serving their own material senses. This is called Maya, or illusion. For them, the material manifests itself through ether. Through intelligence, the material becomes manifest. So, this is going back to that Jacob's Ladder concept. At one point, you have the material world where you essentially want to ascend, and this is the point of the Order of the Silver Star. And then at the very end, they kind of contradict themselves, but in a way they didn't. They said for them, the material manifests itself through ether, right? So you need ether to manifest material things. And then through intelligence, the immaterial becomes manifest. So this is going down Jacob's ladder. Through intelligence at the top, the immaterial becomes manifest. That goes to kingdom, which is at the bottom of the tree of life. So it's all really, really interesting. Now, they also go further and show us a diagram. And it's just this double square that you see on Zora's Grimoire. But going from the top and going to the right, this is what they mean. So you have Jace, or sorry, not Jace, but Geist, also known as Manas. Then Lux, symbolized by a bird, which is air. Ether on the very right. And then you have a snake, which is their symbolism for earth. Then at the southernmost point, you have the ego, which is self. Then to the left of that is water, symbolized by a fish. Then the intelligence, all the way to the left. And then you have Ver, symbolized by a sun. So that one would mean spirit. And then to go on, we have in a cosmic perspective. So it says, as counterpart of the 7, which indicates mastership and balance on the earthly plane, the 8 indicates the rhythm and balance of eternity. Here the adept gets him or himself in tune with spiritual law and will live according to that for all the rest of his or her life. The higher law prevails in heaven as on earth. The 8 means authority and brings leadership and divine rule. So, again, very interesting. This also does apply to Asta, and again, going back to the video of this Order of the Silver Star, the Golden Dawn, and the Rosy Cross. Very important video, I guess, moving on. Now, this last thing I'm going to read to you is actually not so much on the 8-pointed star. While it is, it isn't. It's not so much talking about the star itself, but the star is symbolic of Venus, as you'd already know in my previous video talking about the symbols on Asta's chest during Devil Union in one of my previous videos. So go back and watch that if you haven't. But this is actually a thought from Stephen Hawking. And if you don't know who Stephen Hawking is for whatever weird reason, he was one of the most well-known physicists before he died. I believe he was paraplegic, but one of the smartest minds to grace this planet. So very cool excerpt, in my opinion, here. So it's going to start out with them saying that he's 58 years old. Stephen Hawking is dead, and it's been some years. So at the time he said this, he was 58. So it says that he was afraid that mankind would die out in the course of the new millennium. The 58-year-old paralytic scientist is worried about the heating up of the Earth's atmosphere. And he goes on to say, I am afraid the atmosphere gets hotter and hotter all the time until finally Earth becomes a sort of Venus, with an atmosphere of boiling sulfuric acid. And the only way to save mankind from this doom scenario would be colonizing other planets, according to Hawking. He admitted that travel in space can't solve all problems, but any way can prevent the dying out of the human species. To which planet or planets mankind should resort, he didn't even mention. So, and they even have a section here, which is funny, but it does make you think, because if you look at the symbols of Venus, you have a circle and then the cross at the southernmost point, which gives you an upside down cross. Then you look at Earth, and then you see that it's the same circle, but the cross is on the top, which gives you a regular oriented cross. Attribute that to holy and unholy, you have life and death. As Hawking so put it here, Venus is the death of our planet, while Earth is life in abundance before Venus. Attribute both to the same thing. You rule over life and death, bringing us back to this double square where we have order and disorder. So like I said, I think that all kind of fits very well together. I do want to go into how Magna might be able to defeat Dante. Now, there's two sort of ways this can happen, right? So I did mention earlier that this trap that he set on Dante, could actually be blocking Lucifero from granting him any more power over gravity, at least. He might still have an amp as far as his own body magic goes, but he does not have access to this gravity. And I do believe it's because this has to do with that symbol being attributed to not only the divine, but also exorcising demons and commanding them as well. But this is a lower tier, of course. It's not so much absolute, but this does give him this karmic attribute, which puts him in the game to possibly defeat Dante. And even though Magna is not arcane by nature, at a glance, this could, if he blocks out Lucifero, this could mean that Dante is no longer immune to non-arcane mages and attacks. So we'll have to see when officials drop, and of course later chapters, to see if that is for sure what's happening. Another thing that could be happening here is that he has just dumbed down Dante's power overall to his own. And like I said, this is the power of order and disorder, and the person who controls that double square has control of the outcome. So if Magna has control over the disorder and the order could just be the fact that he's leveling his mana and strength to Magna's own mana and strength. Therefore, they both fight on the same level. Whether that means Dante still has some kind of gravity magic, maybe, and it might be to a much, much lesser scale. But gravity could be one of those. We could see that gravity could be a type of magic where you need a lot of mana to be able to control in the first place. And if his mana is dumbed down to Magna's own, then he might not be able to access it, which is why he's still in that transformation. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. Now, there's something I've been playing with in my head for a long time, that Magna is possibly arcane. And this is not a huge emphasis in the community. I don't know why, but I think it's very important. The pattern and designs on grimoires seem to be pretty intentional, as I did state with Magnus Grimoire, how those circles seem to represent not only planets, but possibly even angels. Angels residing over those planets and whatnot. So on Magnus Grimoire, we have a skull and crossbones with one of the eyes having a clover, a 3-point clover in it. And I think it's interesting that it's there for flame magic, because that symbol is usually attributed to poison. And although we haven't seen any poisonous attributes to Magnus magic, I don't think it's impossible to see that develop somehow, some way. And I think there's still more to his magic than we know, which kind of brings us to this point that this was a post I made on Twitter a while ago too, was that there's got to be someone or a race out there that knows how to classify certain magic attributes, because we can't just have water, mist, fire, ash. Like, there's probably a bit more to these magics that we're not seeing, like with Yuno's wind, how he's able to pull off these wind feats, and how, say, like, I forget his name, but the wind guardian in the Heart Kingdom can't do something like Yuno does. What Noelle is able to pull off versus what Lola Pacheco was able to pull off. I mean, it seems to be some variance within their attribute that we haven't considered within the series. So I think it could end up going back to the character Druat, which is the man who gave everyone their grimoires in the beginning. So I'd like to see that, because, again, I don't think Gray is the only one who had a misclassified magic attribute. I think a lot of our mages here are having issues with misclassifications. which could be a detriment overall because they don't know how to use their own power, and they end up stumbling upon it instead of actually intentionally finding it. So we'll see later on what goes on. I thought this was really interesting. I hope you guys thought so as well. There's another thing I wanted to go on about as far as Magna and Zora's magic goes, but I think it'll just be a Twitter thread or maybe a very short video. I thought it was kind of an interesting find. But yeah, stay tuned for that, whatever it may be on Twitter or on here. But let me know what you thought about this in the comment section below. Curious as to what you guys think. You can do that on Twitter as well. Thank you guys for tuning in. I will see you in the next video. This has been Jackos to go. You either know or you don't. Magna season!